One
second.
Yes. All right. Now you can give a quick welcome. Over to you.
Okay, you can see that?
はい、OK です。皆さん、こんにちは。最 UK のセミナーにお越しくださってありがとうございます。本日は、ローハンプトン大学で翻訳学を学ぶというセミナーをさせていただきます。ローハンプトン大学の担当官の方からプレゼンテーションを始めさせていただいて、プレゼンテーションがすべて終わりましたら Q&A セッションに移りたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。Okay, Miguel-san, you can start the presentation now. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon for you. Good morning for me. I am Miguel Bernal Merino. I am a scholar and researcher at the University of Roehampton here in London. You probably already found that on the map. This is just a beautiful picture of our library. I'm very proud of our campus because I really like it. So I thought I'd put it there. That's my email address, so you can anytime send me an email if I don't manage to cover all your questions today. So we have 3 MAs, 1, 2, 3 MAs. And the general name could be MA in Translation and Media Localization. Cultural Adaptation is another popular name for that. 3 MAs, Audiovisual Translation, Specialized Translation, Intercultural Communication in the creative industries. So what we emphasize, some of you, or some of the students we have, they may come from different degrees, language degrees, linguistics degrees, comparative literature degrees, translation degrees, technical translation, literary translation, scientific translation. Very, very few of them do come from audiovisual translation. So these all 3 possible denominations of certification for your masters would depend on your module choices. You typically, if you're a full-time student, you would choose 3 modules or 3 courses for autumn term, another 3 for spring term, and then the master dissertation, which is the long research piece, comes at the end, normally during the summer term. If you're part-time, you do the same amount of modules during 2 years. And this is useful for students who are working, which we do have quite a few that are working at the same time. So student part-time, working full-time. Audiovisual translation, if you've already seen the website, this is the information we have there. So you should have access to all of this, which has all the main details, amount prices, and the memberships we have of different international associations for translation. So you will go here to the module choices initially, I suppose, because you want to find out exactly what it is that you are more interested in. Now, your choices could be depending on different areas, depending on what you simply like because you like that area, or what it is your professional career, what you see your professional career like. So depending on how what's your main interest initially. Some people want to decide directly what goes into the profession, and then some other people want to go with their heart, both of their work. I can say that other students actually do finish working in the industry they intended. So audiovisual translation focuses on the translation of media products, films, television series, movies for cinema, but also theater, plays, musicals, stage musicals, and also websites, and also video games, video games for consoles, computer, and mobile phones. All these are within what we call audiovisual translation. The reason for that is that this is not the more traditional text-to-text translation, which you would do in literary translation. You have a text, and then you write another text. Or in technical and scientific translation, legal translation is normally text-to-text. In audiovisual translation, we emphasize the fact that that product is more complex. The product is more than a text alone. It has the text, but it has the image, it has the sound, it has the music, and if it's interactive media, it has the player choices. So that interactivity also has an influence in the translation, and we would normally call that localization. Specialized translation has some shared module with it. So if you go to the bottom of the same page here, the bottom of the same page, you see related courses, and you see the other two of our masters. In a specialized translation, you have a similar amount of modules, but the core, the compulsory modules, are different. So if you want to have this final denomination, specialized translation, you would choose this as core. This is compulsory for everybody doing specialized, and these are your optionals. The same applies. So in specialized translation, what you do is more a focus on the tools, technology translation tools, technical translation, technical and scientific translation, which is always needed, and is a bit more focused in, or more similar to the traditional approach, text to text, but it also start integrating all the other factors. So sometimes you will be translating a scientific article or an encyclopedia entry, and it has the text, as you would expect, with the technical scientific terminology for it, but also you will have images, sketches, drawings, graphics that you also need to translate, because obviously the target reader, the target user of that source may need that. And also, as you can see, if you check modern encyclopedias, typically online, you can get them on a desk, modern encyclopedias with very technical information have audiovisual or multimedia elements to that. So that would be part of this. Yes, so you would choose one of those modules, and these are your optionals. Your optionals often bridged between the different specialities, so that you can have a look at what are other professionals within translation services doing. If you've never done, or if you never looked into the translation industries or the language services industry, maybe you have a very reduced idea of what they are. The translation services industry covers many, many services. If you think about it, and this is going to sound maybe a bit arrogant, so please allow me some time. There is no single industry in the world, in any country, that could compete without services from people like you and I. Companies cannot compete in other markets if they don't facilitate, translate, adapt, localize that content for the new consumers. This makes perfect sense, right? So every single industry, company would need translators, language service companies, to actually go into the international markets. And nowadays, unless you begin as a very small company, you need to be competitive, and you need to translate your products and services. Otherwise, other companies will take over your market share. So the translation industries, the language services industries, covers everything. You can specialize on translation of fashion items, tourism, chemistry articles, food menus, politics, video games, comic books. Everything needs translation. And then there are different modes of translation, which is what we explore in most of our modules. So you can do the translation that is on the page as a straight translation. You can do the translation that is on a subtitle at the bottom of the screen where you're watching something on the cinema or home. But you can also do a translation that is specific to be sung. So it's translation for singing, and this is musical theater. For example, you can see The Lion King in England, in the theater, the West End, fantastic show. Or you can say El Rey León in Spain, Madrid, fantastic show, everything sung in Spanish, as is typical for Disney shows. So those also need translations. You can see the translations on video games, and many players would not play video games if the game is not in their language. They say, well, but the subtitles are there. Well, that's all right, but they're speaking in a foreign language. It doesn't get me into the game. So what I mean to say with all this is that every single industry in every single country in the world needs translation. Now we facilitate this with the many different tools we have. And luckily, we have many specialized tools. Only a few years ago, not that long ago, although probably you will be too young to remember that, but before, or even at the beginning of the computer era, a translator's job would be to receive a text, to have a typewriter, to take that text and typewrite a translation and then post it back. That has been the role of translation for decades, if not centuries. Before that, it was handwritten. And that was for millennia, literally millennia, because we've been translating for more than 2,000 years. Now, one of the things that's new now is we have more products to translate in more different modes of delivery. Okay, so I'm not quite sure I understand that. Fair enough. So we have different tools that would write your translation into the different modules, into the different products. Intercultural communication is related to this, but it focuses more. Okay. Intercultural communication focuses more on on media products not focused or not looked at through the language side, but through the culture and adaptation side. So we will look more at transcreation, at marketing products, promotional translation, and how this plugs into how the industry, the media industry, or the marketing industry works. As optionals, you have similar modules. Some will be closer to this promotional translation, media studies, film studies, television studies. Others will be more related to this professional practice. So this is just a summary of all that. The most normal progression, like I said, is 6 modules over term 1 and term 2, which is typically autumn, beginning end of September, and spring, beginning January. The dissertation is in term 3, so typically summer. So students now are working on their dissertation. And each MA has 3 compulsory modules that define, which is what I was mentioning and showing in our official website. So regarding employability, some of you may not be too worried or bothered about this yet, but we emphasize the practical side of it. So although you obviously, this is an academic degree, it's a master's degree, postgraduate degree, you are going to be reading a lot of research in English and your other languages you can read. But our students typically go to work for some of these companies and many others. I suppose you recognize some of them: television companies, game companies, online broadcast companies, language services, testing companies. Testing companies like Testronic or Poltruwing are the companies that where translators do the play testing, for example. So they're playing and they are editing the text, because it's like correcting a draft, like proofreading. Lionbridge, Deluxe, obviously, you know the film companies, the game companies. So the good thing is, because we are in London, we almost always, we know people directly in each of these companies, and we have direct links with them. So although trainership or internship, a student internship, is not compulsory, but we can enable that, and as well as instead of internship, I would actually recommend students well, do the translation test and go actually for the job. And some students do start working in autumn or spring. Some prefer to wait until they finish the master's. But it is possible, and I do actually recommend it because you learn a lot more with that type of pressure. It is stressing, so I'm not going to deny that, but I think it's actually helpful. And yes, the good thing also, and what's quite exciting, is that our students, being mostly from outside the UK, so we typically have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 students that are UK, England, Scotland, Ireland, but many of our students are from outside, someone in Europe, someone in Asia, someone in America. So then your knowledge goes, or the knowledge we share with you goes to all these other countries, and then you establish new best practices, which is actually very exciting. It's so nice to be able to do this. So these are some examples specific from each of the modules so that you get a sense of what each module does. This is one of the main modules if you are doing audiovisual translation. And well, it's subtitling concepts and practices. And in here, I'm showing you something that students would do pretty much from the very first day. There is a tool, a subtitling software that is specific to this industry. And you have here, as you would normally, the source text, and then you write the translation text. And the tool is specific to synchronize written text to the visual image. A film may be 24 frames per second, 60 frames per second, depending on the standard, which varies depending on the country. This then can have exported into different formats for different uses. So television, cinema, and again, depending on the format and the country, that format will vary. But the tool, this tool, provides that, and we show you how to use that. There are many specifics about what's special about subtitling. How is that different from translation? We can go into that if you want in the questions, but you probably get already an idea. Dubbing and voiceover. So some of the other translation we do is specific for not the subtitling, but the voicing, the revoicing, to create that illusion that that character is speaking the other language that is not the native language for the character. So again, we will work with specific software, and there's great variety actually in the practices in each country. But yeah, we use a specific software. We'll get you to do the 2 different practices. So you could do voiceover. In some countries, they have voiceover, not lip sync dubbing, because that's more expensive and more difficult to do. And all countries, they do voiceover for documentaries, for example, or news programs. But still, those, they need to be synchronized to the film, to the audio and the visuals. So we use tools for that. And I'll get you to practice a bit as well. So not only the writing of that translation, but maybe the voicing of it. You don't get marked on the voicing, so don't worry about acting. But you get a taste of what the real job is and why this gentleman here has to do the dubbing of that particular film. Very, very exciting, actually. Technical and scientific translation. It may be closer to what you normally associate with translation. Again, there are specific tools for that, terminology management, alignment tools, when you can align source and target text, and then you can read that. Many of you have worked with translation memory tools, and nowadays it's been growing in popularity, machine translation with post-editing. So that is also part of what you will learn. In here, it's typically a bit less audiovisual and a bit less multimedia, but still, those elements are being integrated quite fast, actually. And this is a good example. I don't know if you've ever seen this website, Euronews, but it's quite cool, actually, if you like translation, because you can get the same website, the same information in the many languages of the European Union. You can see here that is Greek and that is the English. So nice resource if you want to have a look. Cultural adaptation in the creative industries. So cultural adaptation is more linked to how the media industries work and how promotional translation and advertising works in a global campaign. If you travel to many countries, you probably notice how the commercials, the advertisements, the promotion of some of the products you may know and use differs from one country to another. Sometimes in print, right, newspaper, magazine, on a website. Sometimes on a film, on a commercial on TV. So we will explore that and what that says about the process of translation, what things are involved in there, and what are the key components. So it goes much broader in the sense of understanding the translation as a human process, because it is a human process. We couldn't actually, well, I don't think we could have civilization without translation, because we're constantly learning from each other. These are just a couple of examples. This is from a game called StarCraft, sorry, Blizzard. And this is another example to remind you that we've been doing translation forever. This is Troy, this is Achilles, and if you've seen Troy, and this is the video game of the same story. So this is the same story spanning 2,500 years. We've been translated even from before that. Without translation, we wouldn't have this story. Okay, so translation tools is more specifically about the tools, the formats, how the project management. So it's more the business and technical side of it, which is more and more important because nowadays we have so many tools. I think gone are the days when, like I was saying before, when a translator would receive a text and the translator would type the translation and send it back. That probably is gone. I mean, it's still around, but very, very little. And in most cases, for most companies, if you cannot use translation tools, you probably will not be offered a job. So we go into how these tools work, what are the processes, and to be honest, there's nothing particularly difficult about it. You just have to learn it. It's just another tool, it's just another program. But very, very useful and very necessary because we're using more and more computers. And many of these tools, they will work, they're multi-platform. So they will work on any of your computers or any of your screens, whether it's just your mobile phone, your laptop, or your tablet, which is very, very useful for jobs. Localization of video games. This is another module I teach. And we look into exactly that, the localization of video games as a product. So part of what we do is the translation. What are the key components of translating that text, just like in any other translation module, but how that links to the whole video game as a product. So we look a bit at the marketing. Maybe we look at a bit at whether there is censorship or controls for different countries, different age ratings, and how the fact that the product is interactive, so the user is making choices, how that may affect the translation. Maybe if you've seen the same, if you look at a review, a game review or a game analysis in different countries, you would see that some of the elements of that game may have been removed or censored or changed. Too much violence, too much visual aggressiveness or verbal aggressiveness or sexuality, innuendo, those might be removed, for example, from one country to another. So because the player is making choices, there are different laws that apply to what they would apply normally on a film or on a book. Very interesting. Access services, so the description and captioning. This is specific for when audiovisual media, such as film, television, etc., is there. It has to be made available from people who have either visual impairment or auditory impairment. So deaf people, blind people. Captioning or subtitling for the deaf is a special way of subtitling that is dedicated or is targeted for deaf people because obviously they don't have any audio input. So they need to read what's going on. And sometimes you need to write out the sounds, the music, because obviously they're not hearing them. Audio description is a similar mediation, but for those citizens in a country that are blind or very partially sighted. And then the product is enabled. So now any visual information needs to be rendered orally. So we write out a script that is going to be read to describe the image on top of the sound that's already there on the film. So if you've never seen this, I recommend you do have a look because it's a fascinating practice. We're doing mostly English, so this is what you would call intralingual translation or intralingual mediation. But you will also have a go at using your own languages. And this is something that is compulsory in countries in the European Union, the UK, and I think the US. It's compulsory by law that television channels, at least public television channels and public services, they need to be enabled for these citizens that they pay taxes, but they are blind or deaf. Transcreation and the creative industries. This goes more fully into the translation and promotional translation of marketing materials, and it covers any industry, but from the promotional side of things. So transcreation is a term that is very, very often used in marketing circles. And very often, translators are not the leads in those teams. So, you know, if you know big marketing companies like Saatchi & Saatchi or whomever, they would employ translators as only a part of the whole process. But in this module, we want you to explore the whole process. So you would learn each of the different stages and then how that would work within the industry as a global promotion. And you will be encouraged to create your own promotion of a particular product. Very interesting. New trends in translation and the media looks into what are the new developments, into particularly in research. So what are the new challenges from the research point of view that they were not present there in traditional translation scholarship, because obviously new products bring new challenges, but also what are those new tools? And there's tools for everything. In the past 10 years, probably, we've seen the growth in the amount of tools that we have to learn to use for project management, accounting, team working, subtitling, proofreading, playtesting. All of this is just part of the natural ecosystem. It sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but that doesn't mean that it's difficult to learn. It just takes a bit of time and practice. So again, I wanted to put this as a reminder to myself. Why are these modules relevant to you, apart from the fact that you may like translation and traveling, which I do, and actually this profession allows me to travel quite a bit. Not these days. But yeah, so our students do go to work in these companies, and this will continue to be the case. I'll show you why. There is a growth in the language service industries. And I don't know, I mean, when you start talking about billions, you know, I get dizzy and I don't even understand it, but that is a lot of money. That is basically the value of the language services industries globally is big, so it's $58 billion, which is more money than the GDP of most countries around the world. And it will continue to grow. Why? Because, like I said at the beginning, without translation, there's just no markets. There's no international markets. You could go back all the way to the Silk Road if you want. You need translation. And the other reason is that the media markets are going to continue growing, of course, because more countries are producing more media and trying to export and compete with traditionally the strongest media, which is the US, UK. So these are trillions. So if this was crazy with billions, this is trillions, which just is beyond comprehension, really. But what this means is that the more products there are out there, films, games, magazines, websites, theater plays, whatever it is you want, text, encyclopedias, the more they need us. It's just that simple. And when you're talking trillions of dollars, and when you're talking, we are already here in about $2 trillion, which is certainly more money than most countries will ever have. This constant growth of media companies and media markets around the world simply guarantees that we will all be working a lot for the coming years. This is not stopping. So anyway, regarding the teaching, obviously, we're hoping to be on campus next year. Next year, I mean, starting from September. Even if we are not, that wouldn't stop us like it didn't stop us with the pandemic and the lockdowns, because we are already set up with the virtual learning platforms. So it's not really been a problem. We just moved everything online. Sorry, we didn't move it. Because we were already there, we just did more for the online medium, video conference, platforms, etc. So not a problem at all. And we continue the tutoring via video conference. So it didn't stop us. These are the main contacts points. Obviously, that's again my email address. But you can also write for the different questions to Andy Walker, who is part of our enrollment team, international administration, international admissions, regarding the visas, the scholarships that we have. And my colleague, Kaka Juan, will help you with this. So that's all. Sorry if I took too long. And I spoke too fast. I'm sorry, because that's probably because I'm Spanish. So I'll pass it on to Kaka Juan now, and I'm happy to answer any question.
Right. Thank you so much. Your fascinating presentation from Dr. Miguel. It's always, is my pleasure for co-hosting an event with you, because you're very passionate about your, the program you teach, and you're certainly very, very knowledgeable for the translation and the, all the relevant industries. So just a bit of introduction about myself. My name is Kaka Juan. I work for University of Roehampton at the international office. So my responsibility is really looking after the admissions, students' recruitment, and all the other associated affairs for students coming from East and Southeast Asia. So yeah, Japan is one of the countries I do look after. If you do have any questions about I'm trying to be as much academic as possible, but certainly if you do have any questions related to, our translation programs, you're more than happy to get in touch with Dr. Miguel directly. But if you do have any other questions about, how is it feel like, living, in London, and how is it feel of, being an international student at University of Roehampton, and also all the other related, questions regarding to your, the entry requirement, how to meet your conditions. You might get, an off letter with, lots of conditions. You might know how to meet those academic conditions, but you might have some questions about, your visa, and also, how to meet your language conditions, if there are any. So all those related questions, you're more than happy, to get in touch with me. You're more than happy to get in touch with, all our, dear friends at SIUK. They're more than capable of helping you to address those questions. Well, so I'll just give a bit of like 5 minutes, or so presentation about the some of the things about Roehampton. Just a bit of generic information about our university. I'm sure that you have already learned a lot from Dr. Miguel about our translation programs. In fact, our linguistic study is ranked in the UK Obviously, we've got translations, specialized translations, and many other, programs associated with linguistic studies. So the linguistic studies in general, we are ranked in the UK. I think, last time I checked, it was 24th on the ranking table for this subject alone. So the language studies, linguistic department is quite I would say, prestigious, for Roehampton. So that's very good to know. So just a bit of, other information about studying in Roehampton. So one of the questions that you might be asking yourself, if you have not really heard of our universities, that why choose out of so many universities in the UK? You've got 147 universities probably in Great Britain. Why out of these many numbers, many universities, I would choose University of Roehampton? So I basically concluded these unique selling points of University of Roehampton. So the thing that comes on the top of the list is certainly our location. If you want to study any subject, really, I'm trying to be as much objective as possible, but I can't, because if you really want to study any subject, from a UK university, it's always the most ideal option to choose a right place to study. And I think London being the capital city of the UK, you basically are either culturally or academically, you would experience a very much enriched content, and life experiences in this city. So there's definitely unbeatable. Our location being in London is definitely a great advantage in itself. So in terms of the location, London is huge. I think perhaps comparable to a lot of major cities in Japan. London is huge. So where exactly is University of Roehampton? So our university is based right here in southwest of London, and it's not really, when we are saying that we are London University, we are truly a London University, because many other universities, as I'm aware, they are kind of like self-proclaimed London University, but in fact it takes normally about 1 hour or so travel by bus or by train from that their campus to the London city centre. So it's still kind of far to the London, to central London. I would say maybe those are the university based in like the outskirts of London. But for University of Roehampton, we are based in London Zone 3. So it's like about half an hour, maybe, the busiest, if you're, experiencing rush hour, you might take about 35 or 40 minutes by bus or by, tube underground to the city center. So we are, located in an area that's really, close to the to central London, and also southwest London is, known for, the wealth, the safety, as well as the environment as well. You get a lot of parks. Actually, University of Roehampton is just based in, is based right next to the largest park in London called Richmond Park. So that's about the location, and let's look at some other factors that really makes University of Roehampton unique. So we are ranked the top 10 university in London. There are many other universities in London. I think about 30 or so universities in total, because there are some other universities, although the main campuses aren't based in London, they do have like their affiliated satellite campuses based in London. And we are also most research intensive university. For example, Dr. Miguel talked a lot about, his department and a lot of programs that you might not have come across before when you're doing research on other universities programs. So that means, we do offer, quite bespoke and also unique, rare, programs, academic programs that other universities don't do, because we are very research intensive. For example, our language department, and also, we're known for our dance faculty as well. Actually, our dance research is ranked #1 in the world. So that just, speak very loudly about, our research capacity as a university. So yeah, we've talked about the location advantage, and also University of Roehampton. Something that you might not know is one of the oldest British universities in history. So we are actually, in terms of our history, in terms of the heritage, we're actually ranked just right, after University of Durham. So we're the 10th oldest university in the UK. We were established back in 1841. About 180 years history already. So in terms of the students population, we've got 11,000 students at the moment. So of all the 11,000 students, we have 14% of them are international students. And I've talked about, our dance research is ranked #1 in the world. And also our language, our linguistic studies is ranked, 24th. And also our legal studies is ranked, 11th in the UK. And also our education. In fact, University of Roehampton was, established as a teacher training higher education institute. So obviously, because of that heritage in our university, our education department is ranked, quite prestigiously in the UK as well. At the moment, it's 24 in terms of the subject ranking in the UK. So one other thing that really speaks, very loudly about our, the unique advantage of studying in Roehampton, apart from, we have so many, sheer numbers of, prestigious, esteemed subject areas and also faculties. Apart from all that, we, another very, very significant, selling point of University of Roehampton is if you come study at Roehampton, it's really an option of value for money. So what do you mean by value for money? So I've basically put some key figures here. So what you're looking at is the average tuition fees for our undergraduate programs and also our postgraduate programs. So if you are, I think most of the Japanese students, based on our historic data, they normally come here doing a postgraduate. So if you look at the postgraduate tuition fees, this is the range that you would most likely be paying. Okay, so you're looking at £14,504 to £15,352. Now, if you have done some researches about studying in the UK, in particular about studying in London, you might have come across tuition fees, the average amount of tuition fees that are being charged by other universities in London. So if you have done that, kind of researches, you will definitely know, wow, you definitely feel, wow, this is really, really, lower than the average tuition fees charged by other universities, because, based on my, researches for this particular, perspective. So many other universities in London, certainly in London, they're charging an average of 19,000 or 20,000 pounds for 1 year of postgraduate and even sometimes undergraduate study. So I've done and also apart from the tuition fees, one thing that usually puts a lot of students who has the ambition and dream to travel to London to study off is the high living cost. Okay, so if you're talking about studying in London for a year, you're basically talking about living in London for a year. And a lot of people, even a lot of Brits, people in Britain, kind of like afraid of when it comes to come and live in London. The majority of the people here in this country, I have to be a bit of like bias, maybe they would love to come to London because you've got everything British on very modern as well, very developed city as well, to live in London. So it's quite a popular option for lots of people. But one thing that they're really scared of is the high living cost. So what really would contribute to the high living cost is the housing. To rent an apartment or to buy a house in London is just like really, really difficult because of the fees. Okay. However, if you're a student come and study in Roehampton, you would not have such worry because our accommodation fees are really, really affordable. If you look at the amount of accommodation fees we're charging, all of our accommodations are based within one single campus of Roehampton. Okay, so we are not like many other universities in London. They don't really have a campus. They have like their teaching buildings here and there, but they don't really have a campus because London, the land is really expensive, and if they're based in the city center, it's really difficult to have a proper campus sort of environment. But University of Roehampton, we do have our own campus, and it's huge, 58 acres of a parkland, and it's beautiful as well. So all of our teaching facilities as well as our accommodations are based within one campus. You don't really have to travel far between your where you live, your flat, to your lecture hall, and to any places in the campus, because you will be living inside the campus. So all of our accommodations are based within one single campus. And how much is the average fees for an accommodation in Roehampton? So this is how low we can go. It's £115 per week. That's the lowest price that we're currently charging. But if you want to have a bit of like a luxury environment, you want to have your own bathroom, your own toilet within your bedroom, and you want to have a balcony as well, we do have like some premium options as well. But even for those premium options, it does not go beyond £180. Okay, that's the average range of accommodation fees we charge. So I'm considering the fact that we are in London, it's really, really unbeatable accommodation price offerings. And I've done a calculation. I've done a quick calculation just to give you a bit of like a visual idea of how what did I mean by value for money if you come and study at Roehampton. So if you are looking at the table right here, this is the amount of total budget that you would most likely be preparing if you come and study in London. So that would include your your 1 year postgraduate or undergraduate average. Undergraduate is slightly lower I think two or £1,000 or £2,000 lower than this range. So that's the amount of tuition fees you would pay, and that's most likely the amount of your accommodation fees. So this is like, I've picked up the middle, range. Okay, so it's kind of like, the middle, type of accommodations in terms of the quality. And this is how much you get to pay. But if you are looking for the same, things from other universities, for example, you go and do a postgraduate at another London-based university. This is the very much, this very likely this would be the amount of tuition fees that you would be paying to another university, and this is very likely the amount of accommodation fees that you will be paying to another university, and in total, it gives you average. I think I'm being a little bit like optimistic here. Actually, in fact, you might be paying a little bit higher than that, but this is an average of total budget that you would have to most likely be spending on on other universities in London. It could be higher, so £27,000, and compares to the amount of tuition fees, which is £21,540 for Roehampton. So that gives you a better idea what did I mean by value for money, because you're basically paying less for better quality. You're paying less for better quality. So that's basically all I would like to elaborate to all our audiences out there, on top of the already fantastic presentation from Dr. Miguel about studying translation programs and other specialized linguistic programs at Roehampton. We have fantastic faculty for language study at Roehampton, but at the same time, you wouldn't have to spend astronomical amounts of fees to get to that, to get to embrace and also enjoy, our finest teaching quality. So why not? Why not Roehampton, right? Thank you very much. Thank you. I think now it's question time, right?
Yes, this is question Q&A time. Thank you very much, Miguel-san and Kaka-san, for your presentation.
Thank you.
First of all, I got a question from one student. Is it possible for people with no translation background to apply to your PG courses?
Good question. Yes and no. So yes, because we have to deal with so many students from so many different countries and education systems. We have processes to account for that. So if you don't come from a translation degree, bachelor's degree, we can still assess whether you are of the high bilingual knowledge that you can actually have a successful master experience and not too frustrating. So yes, we have had students that come from maybe languages, maybe literature, but they have been raised as bilinguals, and they are very adept scholars and translators or interpreters in their own language. We also have professionals, so people of different ages. So yes, it is possible. Just write to me directly and we'll look into it.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, are Japanese students eligible for the scholarship you explained?
Good question. To be honest, I don't fully know the ins and outs of the scholarship.
I can answer the question, Dr. Miguel. So yes, you are eligible to a range of, well, you can be potentially eligible to a range of scholarships. So we do have a specific website on our official University of Roehampton website. So if you Google Roehampton University scholarship, and then you will find that specific page, which comes on the top of the your search result. But just to answer your question, very briefly, one of the most popular scholarship options which is the one that we have been, awarding to most of our international applicants, is a scholarship called International Excellence Scholarship. So, by the if you look at the word international excellence, so we would really have to look at your grades, to justify whether you are an academically excellent student or not. So we would look at your GPA most likely. If your GPA result is, say, for example, really high, 3.8 out of 5 or 3.5, we would give you from £1,000 to all the way up to £4,000 of scholarship. Do you have to apply for it? No, you don't. So how does it work is when you when after you've applied for a certain program at University of Roehampton, you would our admission team would then assess all your supporting documents, including your transcripts and things like that, and they would then determine whether you have the sufficient level of GPA result or overall grades from your previous study to be eligible to our International Excellence scholarship. If you are eligible, then how much that you should be awarded, because we have like various a variety of amount. We have from the award for £1,000 and £2,500 and £4,000. All depends on your your previous results. If you're really a top-notch student, say you've got a GPA 4, then most likely you will be given £4,000 of scholarship. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. So I got another question from student, and the message was, I should deliver this message to you directly. It seems like you got a fan.
Yeah. So thank you for your. Let me just read the question.
No, I just read it. Yeah. So human translators being replaced by machine translation. No. Why not? Very simple. Machines can do what machines can do. If you see an automatic translation, you very, very quickly realize that it is automatic translation. What is happening now is that machines, like in any other job, machines enable and speed up the process, taking out the strain. So the same does happen in the car industry, the agricultural industry, or the services industry. Machines come to do a role, and the humans manage that. The machines, the programs, the tools that we talk about in our modules help you do that job faster, maybe a bit better, maybe a bit more accurate. Not always better, actually, because sometimes companies are interested in speed, not quality, and they want to pay less, in which case they go for the cheapest option. But yeah, it will not be the case that human translation disappears, because human translation, human eyes and human minds will always review the last version of that writing. And by definition, because we work so much with the entertainment industries, technical translation, simple texts, simple, very terminologically and stylistically simple, could partially be translated with machines and then post-edit, but creative texts, subtitling, dubbing, and most of the media, what you see on television, automatic subtitling, is always actually mediated by a human person. And obviously the humans need to train the machine. So it will never happen, it will not be replaced. Human translators will always be needed, just like in interpreting and just like in editing. It just plays a different role, it's just a different tool.
Thank you very much. 他に質問とかありませんか？もし質問がありましたらチャットボックスでお知らせください。もしなければ今日はこれで終了となります。大丈夫ですか？はい。Thank you so much for today, Miguel-san and Kaka-san. This is the end
Thank you.
of the presentation, the seminar. Thank you very much. 皆さん今日は
Thank you.
ありがとうございまし
Thank you
た。
very much.
Thank you. Arigato.
Thank you. Cheers.
ありがとうございました。
Arigato. Arigato.
もし何かご質問がありましたら SIUK 東京オフィスもしくは大阪オフィスまでご連絡いただきますようお願いいたします。今日は本当にありがとうございました。失礼いたします。Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye. Yes.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Take
All right.
care.